Hello and welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week through news and headlines ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel, and your other host this week comes from Lazy Gaming Guys. It is Scott. Welcome on, Scott.
Good to be back.
We got all kinds of crazy gaming news this week. Pretty much something that's somewhat breaking, but maybe not by the time the episode releases. But Unity, we just added that on there. But first, if this is your first episode of the show, the way we format it is we go through this week's news, and then we end it with the Broket block, which is the more personal side of the show, what Scott and I have been up to since you last heard us. So let's jump right in and explore sector number 583. So this first one is a pretty big rumor on Rockstar and how fans are worried that Grand Theft Auto 6 might cost $150 at launch due to the game's budget. Rockstar Games, who are known for hits like Red Dead Redemption 2 and GTA 5, has a massive budget for GTA 6, but their past success suggests that they can make a profit at the standard $60 or $70 price point. While a collector's edition might cost more, the base game is still set to launch at $69.99. As for the release date, it is speculated that GTA 6 will be announced soon, with a likely release in fall 2024, given Take-Two Interactive's revenue projections currently. So what do you think, Scott? Are you on panic mode at all about GTA possibly pushing the dollar to higher than $70?
Nah, I really don't think that. It's the $150 is widely inflated on that one. Like, there's no way that any base edition would be going to $150. I don't care what game it is. I honestly think it's just going to be that $70. At worst, maybe a deluxe edition for $80. And then the collector's editions, of course, will probably be like around that $150 range. But that's a collector's edition. Base game, nah. I see it as $70, period.
If there were a game to ever push that $70 mark, though, I think it would be GTA. I almost didn't blink when they were like, it might be $150. At first, I read it as like, oh, it's going to be $150. Interesting. Like, I'm like, people will buy that. Almost half the price of a console.
Yeah, I'm sure people would buy it. They'd be complaining the whole time. But the GTA fans bought multiple versions of GTA 5, just like Skyrim, or like Elder Scrolls fans bought multiple versions of Skyrim.
Yeah, $150,
so, I mean,
you wouldn't be able to do with Call of Duty, I don't think. But I don't know. GTA might have that shot.
Yeah, but I still don't think they're going to go over 70.
Yeah, me neither.
I mean, worst case scenario would be 80, and I don't even think that's possible. Like, I don't think that they would. What I'm more skeptical about is the actual release date being fall of 2024. Like, I see this much as Elder Scrolls 6, and it's like, sure, we'll get it fall of next year.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten a guy with
like 2-3 years later.
No guy with a fake tattoo or anything coming out and talking about GTA 6 yet.
We've got nothing. Like, they haven't even really talked about it.
We've had some leaks.
Yeah, and we all know how trustworthy leaks can be.
Well, I guess they got in trouble for leaking that. Like, they went after them legally because that apparently was an early build of GTA 6.
That was last year, and that was an early build. Like, it was massively early. So I don't think they finished the game that quick.
Yeah, I'm with you on the fall 2024 thing. I get that they're trying to read projections. They're trying to hit quarterly earnings by then as far as their titles. But fall of next year, I agree. I do think it's a little early. I think they'd start the marketing campaign at least a year in advance for something like GTA 6, which they will want to market. I get that it's GTA and everyone knows what that is, and it's one of the biggest games of all time, but there's always a marketing push behind it to let the general gamers know that the game is in fact coming out, because this is the kind of game that people will buy a system for and only play this game and nothing else. It's for non-gamers enjoy this stuff. I used to have adults come in and say, I just like messing around in the city. I'm not really a gamer. And that's all they do. Like, right after work, they'll play the games inside the game, or they'll go to the strip club, or they'll shoot up a city or whatever. And that's who it's going to sell to. And they need to know it's out.
Yeah. It's much like even with Call of Duty and stuff like that. they're still going to market it. Like they still market it heavily, even though with something like Call of Duty, you wouldn't have to market that either. Or Pokemon, you don't need to market Pokemon. It would sell, but it makes sense to market it. And that's the same with this. Like, it makes sense to let people know, like, hey, guys, this is coming out. And especially to your point, those people that, because it's a system seller, you want to know in advance, like quite a bit in advance, like, this is coming out, guys. Get your consoles this, holiday season, because next holiday season, this thing's coming out.
Well,
like, you need to be ready.
There is a gaming company that wishes that they were publishing GTA 6, and that's Square Enix, whose value dropped nearly $2 billion since the release of Final Fantasy XVI back in June. So sales declined after a strong start, and a Bloomberg report cited this, along with previous game flops, as contributing to profit declines. So the root issue is said to be excessive creative control by producers, causing project instability and varying quality. Again, this is all according to Bloomberg and Square Enix. CEO Takashi Kiryu plans to focus on big-budget games and is reshaping development practices. Upcoming Square Enix titles include Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Star Ocean: The Second Story R, Foam Stars, and the Final Fantasy XIV expansion, Dawn Trail. Have you heard anything as far as the issue on, let's see what it says here, creative control by producers? Have you seen that as being a problem, or do you think that something else is the issue here?
I don't really see that as being an issue. Like, it's kind of like going, oh, well, directors have too much control over their movies. It means less studio interference. But I can understand how that would lead to, I guess, some varying quality. Because if some producers are really good at what they do, then that's a good thing. And then in other ones, not so much. But I'd rather take that than have a studio mandate to suddenly be like, oh, nope, everything is samey, everything is, kind of be average versus like, oh, this game was amazing versus this game, yeah, that kind of sucked. But I guess maybe that's just me on that one.
Well, then if it's not supposedly this creative control that might be the issue, then are you saying that game quality seems to be what's causing the decline in sales?
I don't know, because Final Fantasy 16 got review bombed heavily by people. People claiming it wasn't a Final Fantasy game, people butthurt that it wasn't coming to PC and everything else. So, I mean, apparently people do listen to that. I know you were worried about it with Starfield,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Starfield. So, maybe that was part of the issue. Also, you had that horrible Marvel Avengers game that came out. And I think that did so much damage. Like, that game was so bad. There is like nothing that can save that game. It was so quickly in like $10 bargain bins. But like Final Fantasy 16 is a great game. And honestly, I think they'll be fine coming forward. Like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is going to sell like hotcakes. And so is Final Fantasy 14 Dawn Trail. Like 14 they're pretty much bread and butter at this point.
Right.
Star Ocean it's going to be good for people that like Star Ocean, but it's not going to be the big seller. Foam Stars, I'm surprised they still haven't gotten sued by Nintendo. Or
what game is that like?
I'm going to be honest. It's Splatoon.
Oh, okay.
You're just spraying foam on the ground and instead of ink and paint with all of the same like weapons and everything else. They look almost identical. But you have like K-pop looking people instead of like the squids and kids or whatever. So it's straight up just Splatoon.
They're not squids, they're octopuses.
Yeah. Well, no, those are also in Splatoon, so you can't do that either.
Oh, shit.
Those were the villains.
Oh.
But yeah, that one I'm surprised they haven't gotten sued by. But I do know, like, for whatever reason, Final Fantasy VII sells. I don't get it. I didn't really care much about the remake. I would rather it just not exist, but people love it.
Yeah, there's money to be made.
Like, yeah. So, I mean, I guess keep pumping it out as long as it's going to keep selling.
Well, we'll see how they continue as they move forward. I know the release of 16 on PC, I'm assuming, is coming in the next couple of months, maybe a year from now. Maybe that'll help their sales.
I would say by next holiday season.
By next holiday season. All right. So that might give them a spike, but obviously they're making some changes here at the company because a $2 billion fall is a pretty significant one in the stock market, especially when you have shareholders. And speaking of shareholders and, and stock market drops, Unity had recent price changes. So, first off, before we go into the story, please tell the Brokettes exactly what Unity is, because I hadn't heard of Unity before today. And but I'll admit I'm also a very casual gamer.
Yeah. So Unity is just a game engine, but it's a very good game engine. Like you can do a lot with it. It's very easy to learn, very user friendly, very intuitive, and it's the biggest selling point is that it's a free game engine. And they decided to make some changes, and that really was not okay. But the big things you need to know is that it was a free game engine, and that it's a very popular game engine with a lot of indie developers specifically because of that fact.
Perfect. And you need a game engine to basically it's your concrete or the base of your game as you continue building upward. So this free Unity engine, it was their price changes were set to begin on January 1st of next year. And this sparked widespread anger in the game development community. So these changes involve charging developers for each game installation after reaching certain revenue and installation thresholds. So the retroactive nature of the changes and inconsistent response from Unity have fueled the controversy. So the key points to this is that Unity will charge developers 20 cents per game installation once revenue and installation thresholds are exceeded. Developers are concerned about issues like install bombing and the impact on charity bundles and Game Pass deals. So install bombing basically would mean something like uninstalling the game, reinstalling it, and doing it over and over again to charge them 20 cents each time. The retroactive aspect of the changes has eroded trust in Unity, and developers are considering alternatives due to these changes, and Unity's reputation has been deeply affected. So to wrap things up, Unity's pricing changes have caused that backlash. Developers are questioning their future with this engine. So what kind of games have you seen are made using Unity's engine that would then cause developers and publishers to be charged potentially thousands of dollars?
So you're talking games like Cuphead, which is one of kind of the one big indie game that a lot of people have heard of. Things like Beat Saber, another very popular VR indie game. Big one is Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
And same with Hearthstone. That's a very
Holy
big one.
shit. That's thousands, that's millions of dollars then.
Yeah, Fall Guys, Untitled Goose Game is another very popular one. The Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps is another really popular one. Hollow Knight, even the Yu-Gi-Oh, the newest Yu-Gi-Oh game uses Unity.
The mobile game?
It is Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel.
Okay.
It's a free-to-play one, kind of like Hearthstone or something like that, just with Yu-Gi-Oh. Tunic, that's another very popular one. So there's quite a lot here that if you just start looking is huge. But I think one of the biggest is also Genshin Impact is one. And that is like a huge one.
So everyone's pretty much against this, right? It seems like gamers aren't happy about this. This is bad news for everyone except Unity, isn't it?
It's pretty much bad news for Unity too. Their stock dropped from, I think it was $60 a share at noon today to $29 a share by 1:00.
50%.
Yeah. And that was again at 1:00 this afternoon. We're recording a lot later than that, and it has not gone up. So it's also interesting that all of the CEOs and CFOs sold all their stock before today's announcement.
Oh, yeah. They knew it was coming.
Yeah, they knew that was coming and decided to sell off all of their stock in the company beforehand.
Isn't that insider trading?
Yeah, that's what I'm like. Pretty confident that's insider trading.
That's such bullshit, man. They always get away with it.
Gonna happen. Yeah, they won't get in trouble for that.
That's so crazy.
It is very much going to hurt Unity as an engine. It's very much going to hurt gamers and game developers because, I mean, that was a way for a lot of these game developers to make games. And now you're going to have to go to a different engine. You're going to have to learn a whole different engine. So all that time you spent learning Unity is now useless. Unity is also coming out and trying to put out fires and like salvage some of the stuff and do damage control, in the sense that they did mention now that, oh, well, devs won't be charged for things like Game Pass. We'll go after like Microsoft for the money.
Fucking bastards.
Which then it becomes, well, okay, Microsoft would end up just having to go, okay, well, we're not having any Unity games on our in Game Pass anymore if that's how it's going to be. And that's going to be, again, another hurt for game developers and another hit for gamers. Have to be like, that's it. Sorry, you know?
Blame Unity, yeah.
Yeah, like it's all Unity's fault at that point. Like, you know, they're the ones that are doing this.
What's crazy to me is how they can just retroactively charge for these games. When they say that, does that mean anything even this year based on downloads, they can just decide to charge?
From what we can tell, yeah. Like they have not.
I don't know how that's legal, man.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, I don't know how any of this is legal, but it's what they're trying to do. And it's like in their new terms of service and stuff. And it's very much I feel like, number one, you're opening yourself up to a lot of lawsuits and a lot of people just going, I'm not going to pay it, deal with it. Like if you've got an issue, I'll see you in court and we'll see who wins, you know? And I think that's a lot of these developers are just going to go, no, we're not paying it.
Sure.
And then the companies are going to go, no, we're not either. And we kind of already saw that a bit earlier where the developers said, no, we're not paying it. And that's when they go, well, don't worry, we'll go after the distributors. So it's like, okay, so if the distributors also go, well, we're not paying it, then what's going to happen, you know? And I see it as just Unity is going to get dropped. These developers are just going to learn how to use another engine, and Unity will just die, like as a game engine. And that's just how it's going to be if they don't change things.
Yeah, and I don't see how...
It's amazing to see how one decision can destroy the whole company.
Sure, yeah, the retroactive thing was big. I think it would hurt them regardless even if they said, okay, starting January 1st, any games moving forward, we're going to implement this charge. It would still hurt them a lot. I think their stock would have still dropped, but I think the backlash would have been somewhat less. It would have hurt more the game developers that are like, oh shit, man, like we already have all these titles using your engine and now we have to move to another one if we don't want to pay that fee. But yeah, the right move, and obviously it's easy to say that now after the fact, but the right move, unfortunately, would have been, okay, if you're going to charge, make it like a 5 cent per download fee, put in those rules ahead of time, like no re-downloads, they don't count. Yes, we'll charge developers and call it a day. Like make mass amounts of little bits of money throughout the years instead of trying to make the big dollar starting in 2024. And that's what's costing them the company. And sure enough, like those guys that got out, they're not coming back. They're like, yeah, that company's done. Well, we're going to invest.
Yeah. And
else.
Even if they had just done for like going forward starting January, a lot of developers would just go, okay, well then I just won't use your engine anymore.
Right. Yeah. It still would have been a backlash for sure.
Like it would have still killed the game engine because developers would have gone, well, we're just done with you then.
Do you think
you got rid of your whole selling point?
Well, do you think any of them would have gone, okay, well, it's 5, let's say it's 5 cents or whatever. Like, do you think any of them would have stuck around?
20 cents and people are still going, no, I'm not paying that because they know that it adds up if you get a hit. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole thing is, yeah, 20 cents doesn't sound like a lot at first, but when your game becomes a huge, massive 2 million download hit, then suddenly that 20 cents adds up real fast. And now you're on the hook for a bunch of money that, you have to pay out to Unity. Versus with other services, like another game engine, you could just buy access to that game engine once and call it a day.
Right.
Yeah, it may cost you $200 to buy the access to that game engine, but once you pay that $200, you're done. And I feel like Unity, if they wanted to get more, become not a free game engine, that would have been the solution. Would have just been, okay, we're going to be going to a paid model like some of these other ones, and you're just going to have to pay $100, to gain access to our game engine. I feel like that still would have been a hurt or a hit to a lot of indie developers, smaller ones just starting out. But a lot of the ones, like, let's say the developers of Cuphead would go, okay, fine, we have enough money that we can pay you the $100 to continue indefinitely using the game engine. So you wouldn't get as big of a pushback, I think, in that sense, because you'd also be doing what other game engines do.
Well, if the story
versus trying to do this.
If the story develops, we'll definitely cover it on here, and make sure to check it out on Lazy Gaming Guys, because I bet you that might pop up on your guys' channel as the weeks go on, for sure.
About it. Yeah.
Next, we have some comic book news, as Todd McFarlane, the creator of Spawn, recently shared with Enter the Popverse his perspective on the relationship between creators and fans in the comic industry. He believes that creators shouldn't worry too much about fan feedback and comments. Instead, he emphasizes that people express their preferences through purchases, and creators should focus on producing their work without seeking constant approval or making changes based on feedback. Well, Warner Brothers should have learned that one. McFarlane's approach is to let his work speak for itself, and he values creative integrity over constant revisions. So he goes, sales will follow if it's a good decision. Don't worry about the noise out there. And I got to say, I kind of agree with Todd on this one, as far as comics and maybe even manga is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, as a creator, you're creating what you want to create. And you shouldn't care too much about what other people, like fan feedback and stuff like that, because the majority of fan feedback is useless garbage.
Mm-hmm.
There's the occasional thing that it's like, oh, okay, I can see their point, and maybe as a creative, you might even, take that as some constructive criticism and work around it. But it is such a small minority of fan feedback that for the most part, you needn't bother yourself with it. Like if you notice something where it's like, oh, yeah, this layout made things a little too hard to read. And you can look back at it and be like, yeah, I can see that point, type of thing. That's one thing. But for the majority of it, it's like, oh, I didn't like this character. I didn't like what you did with this. I didn't like this. It's like, well, that's what I was wanting to do with it. That's the story I was trying to tell. So deal with it. Like, if you don't like it, don't buy it, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's the quickest way to get rid of a creator, especially. It's like, all right, well, I don't want to buy any more of Dan Slott's work or whomever. Like he's a big name that people are real mad about with Spider-Man and his history. And there's people that, yeah, they're like, oh, his name is on there. Okay, I won't buy it. Vote with your dollar. And that's kind of what McFarlane is saying here as well, is continue making what tell the best story that you can, whether it's writing it or drawing it. And hopefully the sales follow. And it's not a guarantee, of course. There's so many undervalued comics as far as underpurchased ones that it's like, yeah, it'd be better if I wish more people had read it. But, otherwise, I think it is a good, sound perspective with people on Twitter, as you were saying, most of the time, or on X, I should say. They're saying things that they might feel strongly about, but later on or going back into it, it might read better. I mean, how much stuff did any major creator through any of the major books, like The Death of Superman, how much crap did they get? The Death of Robin, Jason Todd, they got death threats all the time after they decided to kill the character. And it's like, well, years later, we got these these animated movies out of it. There's this character of Red Hood, which is a fan favorite for a lot of people. Ra's al Ghul is involved, which I like Ra's, so I'm like, okay, this is good. Some good things come out of these controversial things, and people just, unfortunately, some creators or studios, kind of listen to that stuff, kind of like we saw with Warner Brothers, or sometimes they don't even tell the story, and fan feedback is crazy, like Zach with the ancient Kryptonians that were the gods, and fans were like real mad. It's like, but we never saw the story though. Like maybe it would have been executed extremely well. We don't know. So it's a lot of those funny things that unfortunately now with big studios or publishers, they panic when a massive fan voice comes at them.
Yeah, and it's easier to see the fan voices at this point. And I'm also curious how many of them are fans and things like that. Right. That's another metric you really have no way to measure. Kind
of like the Miss Marvel death.
Yeah, like all those people upset about it. It's like, oh, look, next month, there it is. There's her resurrection.
She's a mutant now.
And all those people were like, oh, this will never happen. Like, they've never done this type of thing. And it's like, they do this in comics all the time. Characters die, they get reborn. That's just how it works. They got to tie in with something else. Whether it's another book or whether it's a movie or whether it's a TV series, like they're tying in with something. It's just how it works. It's annoying that all these characters die and stuff, but they'll be back. Don't worry. Soon as someone has a story to write with them, they'll be back.
Even Alfred. I hope soon.
Yeah. I'm sure Alfred will be back. I just don't know. Like, I feel like whoever's currently writing Batman just is wanting to still write without him, kind of use that as a, maybe a way to tell a story they wanted to tell, and having Alfred there would make, would ruin that story because he is more the voice of reason to Bruce Wayne. So you're having to try and have a Bruce Wayne without that voice of reason,
Mm.
So you can tell kind of a more creative story without some of these characters sometimes. And that's to your point with some of the decisions, like there can be some really cool stuff that comes out of it. Not all the time, but there can be if the right people get their hands on it and stuff like that.
Yeah, one of those things was another death of a Robin, which was the death of Damian Wayne. And creatives like Peter J. Tomasi and Pat Gleason ended up doing something great with that death by doing like the Search of Robin arc. They're like, all right, Morrison's going to kill off Robin. Well, we're going to tell a story with it, and then we're going to bring him back. Like, I remember they were like, okay, you're going to kill him. We'll bring him back. No, not a problem. And they did. And that story is on comicbook.com's suggested reading list if you're looking to get into Batman. So I wanted to go over this list because I know you and I have read a few of these, and I wanted to see if we agreed or disagreed on these picks and if we have any other recommendations outside of these. So the first one on their list was Batman by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, which they said was ideal for newcomers with a fresh start featuring memorable story arcs. So this includes things like Endgame, the Court of Owls, that whole arc, the run of Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo stuff. It was all done by them. And I got to agree. I think it is a good recommended start. It was the New 52's Batman run. And it went on for, I want to say, like 8 trade paperbacks.
Yeah, that was actually one of the first Batman comics I read when I started getting back into comics. Was I picked up the Court of Owls trades, and God, it was good. Very, very good series. They work very well together and make a very nice Batman.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that run where Gordon was Batman. Like, there was some neat stuff in there, and I like the villain of Mr. Bloom. But, not all of it was especially strong. But overall, I mean, it's tough to put out years of excellent comics, and Scott Snyder and Capullo definitely did that. So I definitely agree with that recommendation. So much so that I will follow Greg Capullo into that Wolverine book that he's doing now for Marvel. Scott Snyder is doing that indie book that we just got a review copy of, so I'll check that out. So it's one of those things where you give us a strong story, we start following the creators, even if it's characters that I'm not crazy about, like Wolverine, or indie books that are fresh and all new characters. The next one on their list here is Batman Rebirth by Tom King. And they said that it will explore character-driven narratives and a unique take on Batman's personal life. So he famously did the Batman Catwoman non-wedding and then the wedding at the end. There was quite a bit to Tom King's run. Gotham Girl was in there, and Gotham, I think, was his name. And I think you were reading that run too.
Yeah, when I started actually subbing to comics, it was the Tom King Batman run. It's the Batman run I was reading. I started around Poison Ivy's introduction in there, but I was there for like the death of Alfred and, to your point, Gotham Girl and quite a few other things.
The Thomas Wayne thing where he came back and he was like, I'm going to take care of...
Yes.
Yeah, you're no longer Batman. I'm going to make your life so miserable. Like, I just want you to be Bruce. It was kind of a weird take. Like, to me, it was a very different Thomas Wayne than what we got in Flashpoint. But at the same time, I could sort of see what Thomas was trying to do.
Yeah, I enjoy Tom King. He doesn't always hit every time, but he hits enough times for me that I think that it's a really fun read. And I think his Batman run was pretty good. There's a few low points in it that I read, but overall, I think it's a decent recommendation.
The next one on their list is Batman by Grant Morrison. And they said, delve into the introduction of Damian Wayne and the complexities of Batman's legacy. I tried reading this run, and this is the run that Gunn is apparently going to pull from as far as the Damien. He put up one of the covers from this run as the Batman and Robin movie, and obviously he plans on using Damian Wayne. Now, I will say that me personally, for Grant Morrison, maybe I'm not smart enough, and I know Grant Morrison fans are like, that you go into a Reddit thread and they will pull up all of the research behind everything that Grant Morrison is putting into these books. And for me, there's an argument to be made on whether or not it's a good story if I have to know all these things, or if I have to do all this research to get all the complex natures of what he's trying to say. And some would say that a good book would stand well on its own, regardless of anything outside of it. I don't agree or disagree with that take personally. All I can say is that Grant Morrison's books, they're not for me. I can't really get into them. They're a tough read for me. He brings in stuff from Batman's history that hasn't been used in years, and he's like, okay, Batman of Zero-Ul is back, and we're just gonna run with that. And it's just kind of weird how he constructs his stories. And I don't know, for a lot of people though, they say he's a genius. He probably is, but again, he's not for me.
I can't tell you that I've ever read any of the Grant Morrison run in any way, shape, or form.
The good thing about it is it introduced Damien, and when his run was that's why people hate Damien. I don't know if you kind of caught on to that yet, but his run of Damian Wayne Robin with Batman and Robin, it was he was teaming up with Nightwing, and then eventually he met up when Bruce was brought back. He became Bruce's Robin, and there was some good stuff there. Obviously, a lot to explore, but his Damian Wayne was absolutely not an appealing character at all. And when Peter J. Tomasi got his hands on him, that's when they decided to make him grow. Like, he's still a jerk. He's still rough on the edges. He's an Al Ghul. He was raised by the League of Assassins and Ra's al Ghul and Talia, and that's why he was the way he is. And they looked at that and they said, okay, now how does he change if he's brought up by Bruce Wayne and the Bat family? When he's surrounded by the kind of love that, Alfred has for all his quote unquote children, all that stuff that would help any child that's developing who's only 10 years old. And they explored that story. And Grant Morrison eventually was like, oh, fuck that. It's my character. I'm going to kill him. And then he did. But it's like, this is why people didn't like him though, because under Grant Morrison, he wasn't likable at all to many people.
I've heard horror stories of that where it's like, yeah, people just really hated him. But my introduction, Damien, was a very different introduction. So
which one was yours?
Oh, it was the Tomasi run. So
oh, perfect. That's the next one on this list.
Yeah. So that was my introduction. So I thought Damien was great. Like, he's pretty much my favorite Robin.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it, because he goes from not respecting his dad. The first thing he says to Bruce when he sees him, he's holding up a sword. They're surrounded by the assassin. This is in Grant Morrison's run. And he goes, I thought you'd be taller, is what he tells him. So no respect for his dad, just like he didn't have any for Dick. But then throughout this Batman and Robin run, he grows to understand his dad, and Bruce grows to raise a son. I get that he's had the other Robins, but this is like the youngest one he's had, and it's his flesh and blood. And I feel like he was growing to learn how to be a better father through raising Damien, and Damien was learning how to be a better son and a better person overall, to the point where throughout this run, I think he eventually kind of excludes himself from the Al Ghul family and from Talia and says, I want to live with father. And he kind of leaves it at that. It's almost as if he's like, he believes in Bruce's ways of doing things, including the no killing thing. And at the beginning, he didn't. He kills off, I think his name is Nobody in that first arc.
Still kind of funny that they named the villain Nobody and then killed him off. But but yeah, like, though, to your point, it's just a very good story of them kind of eventually finding that middle ground, and coming to terms with accepting, like, Damien comes to terms with accepting the fact that Bruce doesn't kill and stuff, but that doesn't necessarily make him weaker.
Right.
Whereas in his mind, that initially that was a weakness. And he slowly realizes that, and Bruce slowly realizes what it, about his kid and what it means to actually have his own son as his Robin now. And especially one that was trained by the League of Assassins and has a very different mindset than any of the other Robins that he's really had beforehand.
And you see in their run, and going back a little bit to Scott Snyder's run of, like, Damien meeting a lot of Bruce's villains for the first time, like encountering Joker for the first time in the Endgame arc, and in what was the one before that, Death of the Family. So Damien's like, you're scared of some clown dude. And it's like, there's just so much fun stuff in there. And they're all like, he's not just some clown dude. And Damien really quickly learns that. Even though he's not afraid of him, he's still like, okay, I get that he's dangerous.
Wait, yeah. Like he realizes this isn't what he thought. Like it was a matter of, clown running around. It's like, okay, no, he is more than that. Like he still doesn't really scare me, but I realize why you're having issues with that.
Did you have a favorite part in that run of Gleason and Tomasi's Batman and Robin?
God, it's been too long since I've read it.
I will quickly share mine. Was when he goes to Apocalypse to get back the body of Damian Wayne, because Darkseid has it, and it's been years since I've read it, but I believe it has something to do with the anti-life equation being in Damian's body or something. Basically an excuse for Bruce to go up against Darkseid. And he gets the Hellbat costume, goes to fucking Apocalypse, and fights parademons left and right, and kicks Darkseid's ass to get back his son's body. And he burns the bat insignia onto Darkseid because he shoots a blast out of his bat suit, and Darkseid's just laying there fucking laid out. And
that's great.
Bruce is flying back, they're escaping with the body, and they're like, should we go after him, Lord? And he's like, no, let him go. Darkseid's like, I respect that. Like he fucking came for his son's body. Fine.
Like he just branded me with this thing.
The next one on their list here was Batman Streets of Gotham. They called it a mature and animated series inspired Batman story by Paul Dini. Dustin Wynn. Yeah, Dustin Wynn worked on this as well. Kelly and I picked these up as single issues when we first moved here to Florida. I was getting them up in Illinois, and then I transferred my sub over to Florida, and I continued picking these up. But yeah, this is when Paul Dini was doing Detective Comics. He was doing Gotham City Sirens, Streets of Gotham, and it's a really good run. They do have them out for trade. I don't know if they're out of print now, but I would suggest it for anyone that's a fan of Batman the Animated Series. Another one on here is the classic Frank Miller Batman, which goes into the darker and grittier side of Batman with Year One and The Dark Knight Returns. So for a lot of people, this run and also Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams Batman runs, these were the ones that brought Batman back into the gothic. They used to call it gothic. Now they call it dark and gritty side of the character, of what he used to be. The Batman 60s show forever changed the character into a lighter toned Batman for many years, because that was a whole generation's Batman. People like Kelly's parents, they said that they grew up like running home from school to go watch Batman. And so that was their image of Batman. And thanks to these comic books, they then that inspired the changes in the movie that then became Tim Burton's Batman. And that set the tone for future darker Batman stories, and now what we have today. So a lot is owed to Frank Miller's run, to Neil Adams, to Denny O'Neil, and obviously The Dark Knight Returns on its own is one of the best comic books you can buy. It sets up that fight between Superman and Batman, which we saw recreated in BVS. It spun off 2 animated movies that were very faithfully recreated for it. And I think it's one of those must-reads, not just must-read Batmans, but it's one of those like probably top 10 comics you must read is Batman The Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, I've only seen the movies for that, but they were good. I like the second part, or the second movie much, much more, but
that's the one with Joker, right? Yeah. Joker and the fight with Superman.
The fight with Superman was the second one. That was fantastic.
I love that Bruce tells him, I could have killed you, but I just want you to stay out of my way. I did all of this to prove to you that I can be you. Stay out of my way. I'm not going to kill you.
Yeah. Like it was literally just to prove the point, to be like, okay, now leave me alone.
Another one on this list here was Batman by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. They call these classic noir Batman tales with a wide array of villains. So these are the ones that inspired movies like The Dark Knight. So Batman The Long Halloween is one. Long Halloween. There's a trilogy of them. I don't have them on my shelf, sad to say, but yeah, they're ones that people consider some of those, like, Dark Victory is another one. But yeah, these are ones that they say inspired a lot of these Nolan films. And I think they're good. I'm not as crazy about them as I am something like The Dark Knight or the more modern comics like the ones from Dust and Wind. But they're considered classics. I don't know if you ever read any of those.
Nope, never read any of them, unfortunately.
And also is more modern, the Batman by Chip Zdarsky. They call these contemporary option with recent releases. So Zdarsky's, I've read a couple of these and I dropped out of them. They were a little too, I don't know, the tone wasn't for me. Like, he definitely goes lighter with Batman. And Zdarsky is naturally a comedic writer. He's known for stuff like Howard the Duck over on Marvel, which is a lighter series, and putting him on Batman, like, it just didn't do it for me.
Yeah, I can see that.
Couple more here. The Batman Earth 1. This one was by Jeff Johns, a modern reinterpretation of Batman's early years. So it's a retelling. It's an Elseworld story. They took some inspiration of this from, like, his Alfred, which they worked into the Gotham show, which is kind of like a ex-military type of Alfred, rougher around the edges. He can fight, he can train, he can shoot, he can do all that stuff. And that was what this Earth 1 series did. And I sold the hell out of it for years. People seem to really enjoy it. But honestly, I haven't gone back and read it.
I'm good on that one.
Last one on this list is Gotham Central, which is a unique perspective focusing on the Gotham City Police Department. This is yet another inspiration for that Gotham show. The problem with I love this series, Gotham Central. It's very good. I think all of them were collected in one trade paperback, and I read them through there, and I read them as single issues. And the reason it's good is because it follows the Gotham City Police Department. And every now and again, you'll have a Batman villain or Batman himself crash through the building or whatever they're trying to do. And it's like, oh my God, like, you're just seeing everything from their perspective, the fallout, the people they need to help as this craziness and this madness goes on around them. And how it shows that they do solve things on their own without Batman. They're doing a lot. They're not just sitting around waiting for Batman to come and catch the villains so they can catch the guy that's strung up somewhere. Like, they're actually solving murders. They're going after serial killers. And that's what I thought that Gotham show was going to be. And it was initially season 1, but then I guess ratings dropped enough that they're like, we need to just get crazy with it. And then ratings went up even more. So unfortunately, it became something else. But if you like that first season of Gotham, definitely read Gotham Central. It's got gorgeous artwork, kind of noir style, more like year one type of artwork. And again, it focuses on the Gotham City Police Department.
That actually sounds interesting. I hadn't heard of that series beforehand, but I do enjoy that kind of take where you're seeing the actual police department there and not just necessarily, oh yeah, here's Batman. It's here's, the not quite incompetent police department. Like, they're doing more than you think they are based on the Batman comics or other comics as a whole.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now on my shelf. I'm like, yeah, I got to read that again. Gotham Central.
Yeah.
So aside from this list, is there any honorable mentions or things that you would recommend that's not listed on here that you particularly enjoyed, that you would say, hey, if you're a Batman reader or if you want to get into Batman, if you haven't read this, make sure to check it out?
One of the ones I will say is Batman Elmer Fudd. I know that was an Eisner winner and stuff like that, so a lot of people probably have heard of it.
Tom King,
but
right?
I feel like that was a very good Tom King short story. It was a Looney Tunes crossover. They've done a bunch of the DC Looney Tunes crossovers, and I love them. But that one was a very good one, and is just a really interesting story that you wouldn't expect. You wonder how is Batman and Elmer Fudd going to cross over, and it's almost like a noir style story for a bit, and it's very, very worth the read. Also, just a short one issue, so not too bad of a read either. The other one I actually see you have in your list, so I'll talk about it when you talk about it.
Just mention it now.
Okay, the Batman TMNT.
Yes.
I've only read the first 2. I haven't actually read the third one. Like, I have it all. I just haven't read it. But I think it's fantastic. Like, I think they're really good stories. Really enjoyable. It's just, like, definitely worth the read if you want another crossover of Batman with a different character or a group of characters in the situation. It's really worth the shot
Yeah, what I liked about that crossover is that it felt like they gave a damn. Like they really tried to tell a good story behind it, because they could easily just put them together and then they team up and then they fight the other guys and that's the end. But they took their time with some of these interactions, which I know the animated movie came out. If you saw the animated movie and you haven't read the comic, you're doing yourself an injustice, because I felt that the comic was so much more and better than the animated movie, because they take their time with showing us how Batman relates to each of the turtles. It's not just, okay, well, Robin likes Raphael, like in the movie, like how they tried to do, and Batgirl relates with Donnie. It's like, no, instead, Batman relates with all of them himself, and especially with Raphael, which they didn't put in the movie, of like, the loner or someone who lost
someone. They didn't put that in the movie?
No, they didn't. You talked that scene with Crime Alley.
Those were some very good interactions. Like, him and Raph were some of the best interactions in the comic.
Exactly. Yeah. No, they didn't put it in there. It's like, come on, man. They didn't even put Splinter in the movie at all. And there was a scene, right? In the comic, there's a scene with Batman he kicks the turtle's ass like he does in the movie, but then he goes up against Splinter, and Splinter's like, man, if I were younger, like that kind of deal.
Yeah.
But he still gives him a run. Yeah. It's a good pick, man. I like that one.
It definitely did feel like, to your point, they cared and really like crafted a story. It wasn't just, oh, well, at the crossover, it was, here, I have a story that's going to involve a crossover, and I think we'll do it right. And they did it right.
I'll quickly go through my other 3 picks, and that is Gotham City Sirens with Paul Dini again, Batman the Animated Series inspired. We almost had a movie by David Ayer, and it involves Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, and Catwoman teaming up right around that same era as Streets of Gotham, for example. So I think they published at the same time. Gotham City Sirens, if you pick, there's 2 trade paperbacks. The first one has the Paul Dini stories. The second one has a different author. Still gorgeous artwork, though, by Guillaume March. And I think worth getting both if you're going to read one, for sure. Definitely pick up volume 1. There's also the Justice League Tower of Babel. So speaking of adaptations, they called it Justice League Doom when they released it as an animated format. And I like the movie just fine, but the problem is, for whatever reason, and I think it's because he was showing up on the CW show at the time, in the comic, it's Ra's al Ghul that takes these plans and puts them into motion. But in the movie, they changed it to Vandal Savage. And again, I think it's because they were just trying to push the villain since he was showing up on TV. Obviously, I'm biased. I love Ra's al Ghul. More of him would have been great. So I like Tower of Babel. Basic premise, Batman has a contingency plan for all the Justice League members. Should anything ever happen, well, the villains take that plan and put it into action. And they all get mad at Batman. And you'll see the fallout of that if you read it. And the final one is Batman Hush, constantly selling it, constantly people buying it who never have read Batman comics, who are trying to get into Batman. It's a good, very kind of light story. You see a bunch of villains in it. We just heard Matt Moylan actually talk about it a couple weeks back from Udon, and how he was described it perfectly. It's got a bunch of villains for you. It's a little mystery. It's got a new villain, and that's it. Nothing too crazy. Beautiful artwork by Jim Lee. So those are some recommendations. If you haven't read these, if you're a Batman fan, I think you should absolutely read probably everything on this list, even though maybe not the Zdarsky run, but everything else that they had on there, I more or less agreed with. So this next news story goes into more Batman, as the late Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, shared his perspective on the character in the now released documentary Kevin Conroy, I Am the Night, which is on the 4K UHD release of Batman Mask of the Phantasm. So they took the old movie, they cleaned it up even more since its Blu-ray release, and formatted it for 4K, added some extra features. And on there, he says that he sees Batman as the true persona, while Bruce Wayne is the disguise. So that's always the debate. And they do that with Superman as well. Is it Clark Kent or is it Kal-El? In this case, is it Batman or is it Bruce Wayne? Who do you see as the true persona?
I pretty much see the same as Kevin Conroy on that at this point in his life, he relates more to Batman with his vigilantism and, saving people and stuff like that versus Bruce Wayne. That's just the role he plays so that he can kind of keep up appearances and the lifestyle, and because he's almost expected to at this point, and that some, bad things would happen if Bruce Wayne suddenly disappeared. But I don't feel Like I feel like most of the writers have written him pretty much where, yeah, that's just more of a chore for him. His real passion, his real identity is as Batman, on the streets of Gotham.
Yeah, I'm with you there too. I think Bruce is the mask and Batman is the true one, especially in this point of his career. Like you might even point to Mask of the Phantasm as I think when you're seeing his origins, like right before Andrea Belmont leaves him, that's when he might have had that chance of like, I'm still Bruce Wayne. But a lot of people have told that story of, and it's probably true, of like Bruce Wayne died when his parents got killed, when he made that oath of, I'm going to take this path so that no other child has to suffer the same thing I did. That's the day Bruce Wayne died, and Batman, this thing inside of him was born. And some say that since he was a kid, it's been Batman. And some say that it's like in Mask of the Phantasm, when he no longer saw any reason to try to be happy, as he puts it, then he could truly become and forever be Batman. So I'm with Kevin, man. And you can kind of see it when he voiced it. He mainly voiced Batman as Batman, and he had to put on a voice when he voiced Bruce Wayne. So it really worked out. This anniversary release of Mask of the Phantasm celebrates its 30 years, and they restored the print and remastered the audio. And the documentary does celebrate Conroy's lasting impact as Batman across various media. You've heard his voice, even if you've never heard the name somehow and you're a Batman fan, you've definitely heard his voice in animation, Batman the Animated Series, Justice League, the Arkham video games, that recent Warner Brothers, what was that called? Smash Ultimate thing?
Multiverses.
Yeah.
There we go.
He played Batman there in the Injustice games, live action appearance as Batman in the Arrowverse Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. So he's been all over the place. Definitely the very, very well missed for sure.
Yeah. Like he is the voice of Batman.
Definitely what I think what most of us hear when we read the comics too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Last two news stories here, as Disney is now raising its prices for ad-free Disney Plus and Hulu in October. So we previously covered that they were raising the ad versions, but now they're doing the ad-free ones as well. We kind of speculated that was going to happen. Disney Plus will be $13.99 a month, and Hulu's ad-free tier will be $17.99 a month. And they're introducing a combo plan for both at $19.99 a month. And these are significant increases from last year. They also have a triple play bundle, which adds ESPN Plus, and that one is $24.99 a month. Hulu Live TV with ads is going to be $76.99, and ad-free will be $89.99. There's also a Duo Basic option with ads for $10 less on each of those. Password sharing will be restricted, and the with ads Disney Plus tier will expand to select markets in Europe and Canada on November 1st. So there's the crackdown right there. Of first they did it with Spectrum as far as the cutting down the channels. So people are naturally going to move over and get the ESPN bundle, the ones that want to watch sports. So they're raising the prices on them. And I'm seeing quite a bit of backlash on this one too, because they're not offering more. In fact, they're selling off a lot of their shows or removing them from the service, and then they're raising these prices. So I'm seeing a lot of subscribers, even the ones that are very much pro Disney Plus, they're kind of like, they're kind of calling it quits.
Yeah. I will say with the Spectrum, ESPN is back on Spectrum and everything else.
Oh, they came to a deal, or what happened?
Yeah, I guess all of it's back on Spectrum now.
I wonder who buckled.
So all I know is my dad's happy that he can watch sports on ESPN again. So, and fun fact, even if you bought ESPN Plus, you could not watch any sports if you still had Spectrum.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It asks you to input a cable provider, and if you put in Spectrum, you will not be able to watch either way. So yeah, there was no way for Spectrum people to watch it. Like you had to buy a whole nother service provider.
Right. Yeah, this is the weird thing, because I don't know, they've been losing millions of subscribers for the last couple quarters. So raising their prices, I don't see how that's going to help them.
I don't know. HBO Max did the same thing. Netflix does the same thing. Yep. Like it seems to be like the go-to. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me, but it seems like that's like the playbook. They all do it, and it's really weird to watch, and it just kind of hurts. Like, hurts you right in your wallet, and it's just not fun. So I'm like, I don't want to pay more.
I've even told my parents because we use their Disney Plus, we use their Netflix, we use their Hulu, and we use Kelly's parents' Paramount Plus. But I'm like, I've told my mom, I'm like, if you ever want to cancel any of those, feel free to. Like, these are not services we need. Like, we're using them because we have them, but honestly, it's not stuff that I would pay for. So don't feel like you have to keep subscribing to these because we use them. And that's kind of the way I think a lot of people go, where like the password crackdown thing, it worked for Netflix. They ended up getting a bump in subs, but I think all these other services that don't offer as much value apparently to the general public as Netflix, they're going to just cancel. They're going to be like me. Maceo said the same thing of like, oh, you're going to crack down on passwords. Oh no. Like, well, I guess I'm not watching that now.
Yeah. I am curious. Do you know what the restriction will be?
For password sharing?
On it? Yeah.
I don't know what the number of devices will be because I don't have Disney Plus.
It has been 7 is what it's always been. So I was curious if that number changed or...
That's what I would assume by them saying password crackdowns.
Yeah. So I was just curious what the new numbers were.
Crackdown. Yeah, let me see if I can find it real quick.
And granted, I'm the only one on mine. So like, it is crazy to me too that if you just had Netflix, HBO Max, and Disney Plus, like the bundle at this point, you're spending like almost $80 a month.
Yeah,
for 3 streaming services.
It's still cheaper than cable, but yeah, it's getting up there.
Well, and that's just, you throw in Paramount Plus, you throw in some of these other streaming services that you need to get other shows, like to have the same amounts that you would get on some of these is over $100. And I'm like, this was supposed to save us from high cable costs. And now it's pretty much going the same way.
So I'm not finding any specifics on how they're going to crack down, but they said that very much like Netflix, who sends out those emails to know that to those that are sharing passwords, it says that they mean to enforce new rules around password sharing with streaming services collecting vast amounts of data, including your location and devices you use to watch TV. Yeah, so they're not going into specifics yet, but that was part of their their quarterly earnings.
Right. So it's just a matter of, we'll find out more details, I guess, to come on that part of that.
It might even be like a month to, kind of like Netflix, just straight up like 1 month to the next, boom. And then they'll probably do the same thing where you'll start getting a notification like, hey, sign in here. And that's what ended up happening with us and Netflix. And I was like, well, I guess I'm not signing in.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see with that, but it's just amazing that all these like streaming services just keep raising the prices, and it's like before long it won't be cheaper than cable, which is the sad part.
Yeah, and I don't know how they can afford to keep doing it.
I don't know.
They're losing money, so I don't know how much.
It's just a strange concept to me.
Yeah, I think Sam and I or someone else talked about it on here. It might have been Nick, of how like, we speculate that, we know Paramount Plus has 2 years left. They've said it themselves on their earnings that they're not going to be around in 2 years because it just costs too much and they're not making the amount of subs that they thought. And that goes with all the streaming services except for Netflix, where they're like, this isn't as lucrative as we thought it'd be. And the Netflix model doesn't work for everyone. So I don't know. I don't see Max existing in 5. I don't see Disney Plus existing in 5.
No.
I think it'll for sure be Netflix, and maybe Apple TV will stick around, especially if they buy up Disney. They'll just move all that programming onto there. But I really couldn't tell you what other services, except for the free ones. The little ones are good.
Yeah, it took Netflix almost 20 years to be able to turn a single profit. I think it was 2020.
Are they still profitable? Are they even profitable?
2020, I think, was the first time they ever posted a profit.
Gotcha.
So, and it wasn't much of a profit, and that was the first time. So, I mean, you're talking streaming services have never really been profitable. So I didn't quite understand it because of the fact that it's like, well, yeah, I mean, look at Netflix. It took 20 years or about 20 years to turn a single profit. and to have a year where they weren't in the red. Why keep operating for that long? Like it just, and who looks at that and goes, you know what? That's a good idea. Like we can do that. Don't worry. In 20 years, we'll see a profit too.
We'll be profitable in 5.
Yeah.
They don't know
like,
what they're doing.
Yeah. It's just a matter of like, no. And it's funny too that with anime, Crunchyroll pretty much has the monopoly, and yet their prices are still more reasonable than any of the other streaming services. And they have a literal monopoly on anime.
Yeah, they should. Someone should tell them, raise it. You got a monopoly on anime.
Well, I think that's because they know that if they raise their rates too high, people will just pirate.
Oh,
the anime community is not afraid to just be like, all right, like, you raise the rates, we just leave. And I think they realize that.
They're like those investors with Unity.
Yeah, where it's just like, okay, bye. We can find your stuff on multiple pirate sites.
Here's this last one, which was apparently a shock to some people. And we've been telling, at least the Snyder Cut community has been telling people for years that this is what was happening, and they called us conspiracy theorists. Well, a new Variety report suggests that review scores on movie and TV aggregate site Rotten Tomatoes have been influenced, with one PR firm, Bunker 15, allegedly paying to boost their film's reviews. So Bunker 15 uses unconventional methods. What they do is they recruit lesser-known critics and influence them with payments. So this report raises questions about the credibility of Rotten Tomatoes' scoring system. For example, the case of Daisy Ridley's film Ophelia. It was cited as how PR manipulation can affect review scores, with the film score improving from rotten to fresh due to favorable reviews added by Bunker 15 affiliated critics. We've also seen it with the Star Wars movies. One guy on Collider was like, I reviewed your movie. Like, he was pissed off because he didn't get invited to the Star Wars, the Disney World opening of Galaxy, whatever that was called, Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
And
Galaxy's Edge.
And he was pissed off because he didn't get one of the red carpet invites. And he was like, I reviewed your movies positively and I did all this. And he was going on and on about it. And it's like, yeah, these guys are they're wined and dined, and they have been wined and dined for years to review these movies positively. And you know what happens when you don't review them positively and you get invited to these premieres? You stop getting invited to these premieres. They like to invite people that are going to positively review their films. That's how this exchange works. And the same goes with if you have a friend in the industry like Jeff Johns, who is friends with all of these people and review aggregators, and he's like, fuck that BVS movie, then all of a sudden, guess who's getting the signal to mass review that one negatively? Who gets, we could tell because they all had the exact same type of criticism or wording in there. You can go on X and you can find the almost copy and paste. That's why we were like, they're bot influenced. The copy and paste reviews, positive and negative, towards a lot of movies. And now there's actual evidence, enough evidence to some people to finally open their eyes and be like, yeah, Rotten Tomatoes is bullshit. Critics are influenced easily by massive studios, by other creatives, by the fact that someone is giving them a free pass to go see the movie, and Rotten Tomatoes scores are not relevant. That includes audience scores. I hate that people are like, well, audience scores are the true ones. It's like, those are bullshit too. That's literally just Joe Schmo, anyone who doesn't know anything about anything, that has the power to influence a positive audience score.
I can't say I was honestly surprised. Like, I can't say I'm surprised that any company like with Rotten Tomatoes and stuff, that it's like, oh, what? Big companies were using it to promote or, do negative against things. Wow. Shocked. I never would have guessed it. Like, yeah, it kind of was obvious and made a lot of sense. But of course these companies are doing this. Like, why wouldn't they? Like, when something like Rotten Tomatoes makes it so easy for them, of course they're going to. Like,
what I love about it is people are like, well, it's only Bunker 15. And it's like, no, that's an example. Like, that's someone that got caught red-handed.
Yeah, that's the one where they have the proof of right now. I guarantee there's more than that.
Of course.
Like, you can't tell me they were the only ones. They may have just been the sloppiest ones at doing it, or maybe they just messed up once. Who knows? But it was a fact of like, I'm sure they're not the only ones. Cannot believe that they are the only ones. Like, given how, ripe it is for people to do that type of thing, there's no way they were the only ones.
Well, even with
like,
this,
no shot in hell.
This black and white evidence, guess what you're still going to hear next week? Oh, it's got a good score on Rotten Tomatoes. Oh, I hear it's getting good reviews.
Yeah. That's going to be the whole thing.
Right back to square one. You just watch.
And again, people just don't listen to reviews. They don't mean anything. Unless there is a person that you know personally or something that they've reviewed something and then you've gone and played it or watched it and also agreed with them and liked it and everything else or disliked it. And you have a track record of this person has very similar tastes to me. Don't believe it. And even then, take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
But that at least is okay. I can kind of understand where you're coming from of being like, this reviewer, we do tend to like the same things 9 times out of 10, dislike the same things. I can understand that. But like just random reviewers, you don't know who these people are. You don't know if their taste is the same as yours. Just a bunch of random people telling you, yeah, it's good or yeah, it's bad. Like, why believe them?
People were immediately like, this is why I listen to Metacritic. What do you think about Metacritic?
I think it's the exact same. Like, I 100%, again, kind of like with the Bunker 15 or like Rotten Tomatoes is just the example. Like other places like Metacritic and all this is going to be doing the same thing. There's no way they're not. It's just a matter of there isn't current evidence of it, but it's the same type of thing. So I wouldn't be shocked if there was, corruption essentially over there as well.
And I can see how it easily happens too. I mean, I couldn't lie to you and tell you that, like, if all of a sudden a movie studio started giving us tickets to go see their films and like just talk about the movie on your podcast, there's no way we wouldn't be biased. Like, well, I mean, they're nice guys.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
or
go
at least
easier.
Be like, oh, it wasn't that bad, Like, yeah, sure, it may not be for me, but I could, like, you would kind of find that way of saying it versus being like, wow, that sucked.
Right.
You'd be more diplomatic with it because it's like, well, they did give us free tickets and, like a little care package and things like that.
Yeah, it'd be more like, instead of saying, I didn't like it, it'd be, if you're into this, this, and this, then you'll love this movie.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. A lot of revelations this week when the stock market and review sites, a lot of stuff coming to light. I love it. But that does round out our news for this week. Let's head into the final portion of today's show, the Brocat Block. So, Scott, what have you been playing, watching, and or reading? What's been making you broke?
So, I've been playing a bit of Baldur's Gate 3. That's been some pretty good fun. Picked that up after seeing like a bunch of people I know talking about it. So I decided to watch a bunch of gameplay footage and again, make my own decision based on actual things and not just reviewers.
Why would you do all that? Just check the Metacritic.
Yeah, I know. I could have saved so much time by just checking out Metacritic instead of watching hours of content of gameplay and things like that. But I decided to pick that up and man, I am having a lot more fun than I thought I was going to with this. It's all of the good of D&D without the bad of having to deal with like the player that just wants to bang everything or, the one that wants to just kill everything. Like you don't have the crappy players that you're always stuck with in a D&D campaign.
Do you ever have the guy that just argues with the DM all the time?
Yes.
That's me.
Yeah. Yeah. Like all kinds of crap. And it's like, this game is great. I'm amazed at how much they code into the game that you can do. They try to make it to where it's like, yeah, you can do all of those fun interactions that you would do in a D&D campaign of like, oh, the archers, you can't really hit them with your arrows because they're above you. Well, they're on a wooden platform, light the platform on fire, and then suddenly it just burns them up and collapses. Or I can pick up a dude and just smack him into another guy things of that nature, where it's just the fun little ways you can figure out how to get through encounters, is all pretty much coded in there. I know the popular thing is you can bang a bear.
What the fuck?
Yeah, that is a popular meme that I've been seeing, is that, yeah, it's just a bear and you can bang it.
What's the bet? Why would they even put that in the game?
I don't know, because you always have that horny player.
Why a bear? Like, specifically, can you just bang any animal in the game?
Maybe, and that people just typically bang the bear. I don't know. I've been seeing that meme. I'm not going to go around trying to bang the bears. But it is also only the second game ever that I know of to have full frontal nudity and on a console.
Oh, no shit.
Because the console version, the console version has the full nudity that the PC version has.
Interesting.
And you can play through the whole game like that too. And it shows up for cutscenes and everything.
Wow.
They also had to introduce a streamer mode in the hot fixes real quick, because streamers were accidentally pushing one of the buttons that would, like when they were changing armor, they would swap out the armors or whatever, and it would glitch and pop up the nudity. So when you enable streamer mode, it doesn't have nudity, to purposely prevent people from getting banned off Twitch for that.
Right.
But it is a really fun game for like D&D players. Again, anyone that's listening to this and thinks that it might be right for you, go check out some gameplay, some footage, and come to a decision. But I do recommend you at least check it out and see.
Very nice. Yeah, I've been hearing a lot about Baldur's Gate. It seems like a lot of people are getting into it. That, obviously, Starfield. It seems like whenever everyone's playing
popular.
Those same games, I'm like, oh, it must have just released. And obviously you just picked up Baldur's Gate.
Yeah. Starfield's another one that I would love to play, but I currently don't have an Xbox that can play it. I mean, my Xbox One exists, but it cannot play Starfield, and my PC definitely can't play Starfield.
Yeah, it's one of those games that it's like, even if I had a standard gaming PC, if it was even like 5 years old, I feel like I'd have to upgrade it to play something like Starfield.
Yeah, any of the stuff that is next gen exclusive, it's like you might as well just like upgrade the PC.
Yeah.
To a newer one, because you're not going to be able to play it.
Oh, very cool, man. Have you picked up any recent comics or anything else that's been making you broke? Anime you've been watching?
I haven't really been watching any anime, unfortunately. Most of my time has been video games for like the Game Club and Lazy Gaming Guys and stuff like that. And then comic books, I did make one mistake that I'm like, all right, when I go down to my local comic shop, I got to take Power Rangers all covers off my sub. I didn't realize how many covers they release.
Oh, yeah, the classic add all variants.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this one issue has 12 variants.
Yeah, because the thing about it is I don't get all covers necessarily, because I was told that a lot of the covers can be very expensive. So it was like, okay, no, I don't want, $120 cover. Like, I'm good. So it was like all of the covers that are basically under $20. I was thinking it was like Sonic, where there's like 3-4 covers, unless there's something very special going on. Like,
yeah, the 900th issue.
The 900th or something like that. And then I go to pick up my comics, and there's like 15 covers for Power Rangers, and it's just a random issue. What the hell? And apparently this is just common. There's like 10 to 15 covers under $20 for Power Rangers every like 2 weeks. I'm like, I can't do this. Like, this is not feasible to me.
Yeah.
Like, I very much thought it was going to be like Sonic, or because even when I did it with like Unnatural, it was only like 3 covers, 4 covers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm used to that. I didn't realize they go the Marvel route, and it's like there's crap tons of covers. So I do have to kind of like narrow that down and be like, okay, just do cover A's, and I will let you know if any other covers, because that was a lot more ridiculous than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's always nice. What's nice about the previews catalog is I still pick that up, and I still pick out a variant here and there. Except for like Sonic, I get A's and B's. I'm trying to think if there's another series that I get variants for. But yeah, every now and again, it's like, yeah, I'll get, the A and B of that series. Batman the Animated Series, that was the one. like the Adventures Continue. I tried to get all the variants for that. Batman TMNT, when that came out, that was another one. So every now and again there's a series, but yeah, the previews is still pretty handy with an artist that actually finishes on time.
Yeah. To your point, some of them it's like, well, it's this variant and picture coming something. It's like, that's cool. How am I supposed to know if I want that? To your point, it helps when the artists are actually like done on time. The Sonic ones have been very good because like
Yeah.
I used to see them on Twitter, like their covers, some of them, and then I'm like, oh, okay, that's coming soon. And now I'm just getting them like, 6 months later. It's like, oh yeah, that's that issue. And I feel like I have this? And it's like, no, it's just because I was seeing it for all the, like I saw it so long ago on Twitter and things that it's like, oh, this is the actual release. Like
Right.
I just didn't realize that it was released, like that they had it done that far in advance. Okay.
Well, I'll tell you something, that comics for sure have been making me broke as well on my end, you might have seen it, but I pulled the trigger on that Archerm Street Fighter 2023, the swimsuit special. And that's the one where Cammy White. Yeah, you've seen it, right?
Yeah.
It sold out in minutes. Like I missed out on that Udon sale when it released, when it just dropped and everyone bought it up. It was limited to 400 copies of each. Like it's like a black and white swimsuit variant is what it is on Cammy, and it's done by Archer, one of the greatest modern variant artists out there. And yeah, it was one of those that 2 weeks ago was going for $500 for the set. I was like, Jesus, fuck that. Like I missed out.
Yeah.
It is what it is. That it's not the first time that's happened. And then it went down to $250. And I was like, oh shit, like hopefully it goes down even more. And then I was able to get one for 185. I think it was 180. And I was like, okay, I'm going to pull it here. Like if it goes down to 100, I'll kick myself in the ass later. Like, oh, well, but I'm like, but it might go back up. So let me the cheapest I've seen it at is 180, 185. And thankfully I did. I pulled the trigger on it because now I'm looking at the listings and they're up to $208 or $150 for just one of the variants. So I'm like, okay, I got both for $185. So that was a pretty good deal.
So you did good at least.
Yeah, so far I did. We'll see what it is in a month, but I'm happy with them. I really like the covers. I love the guys in Udon. I like Archerm, and they're ones that I'll eventually send in to get graded with Bobby, and hopefully Archerm does another signing, and I can send them with that or crack them open and resend them so that Archerm can sign them. But yeah, it's probably been my biggest comic purchase this year, and it's not often that I do that. Like I'm not a Silver Age collector. Like some of these guys where they're like, yeah, I need that early Spidey for 400 or whatever it is. But in this case, it's like, I have to go for it. He's one of my favorite artists. Yeah. Well, yeah, Bobby's, or Johnny Two Chips. Like he's on the collector's corner too. Just drops his massive comic dick, like, bam, first appearance of Swamp Thing. Like, damn. Yeah. We're all smoking cigarettes after seeing that shit.
Like, holy shit.
Well, Scott, it's been a good episode with all this crazy news that's been happening this week. So I want to thank you for being on and helping again. And please let them know about Lazy Gaming Guys and where they can find you.
So you can find me every Wednesday night on YouTube at Lazy Gaming Guys or YouTube /Lazy Gaming Guys. You can also go to lazygamingguys.com. That'll take you to some great quality Lazy Gaming Guys content.
Fancy. Is that new?
It's new. It's a thing.
LazyGamingGuys.com, huh?
Yeah, it's a thing.
I better not get a virus from this.
But,
I better not be some other. Okay,
you will not get a virus.
Oh, I see. I see.
I can promise you won't get a virus from it.
Wow.
Who owns it? Yeah, he went to GoDaddy and bought it.
Amazing.
Yeah. But you can go there and you will see quality content that Jacques is still very upset about.
Oh, I bet he is.
I find it hilarious.
I'm going to give him shit tonight when you guys stream.
Go ahead. Because, Jacques was so pissed off about it. I thought it was hilarious. Yeah, Wednesday nights at about 10 to 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. We stream, and it's pretty fun. Just have fun and have good time. We are doing a thing called Game Club, where every month we have a different game that we play. You all are welcome to join, any of the viewers. You can play the game yourself and then join in while we're talking about it. And, say your thoughts and opinions on it. This month is Titanfall 2. So if you want to check that out, you can. It's been free on like so many different services that, most people tend to have this game. And I think it's only a few bucks if you don't. But encourage playing along with Game Club. If you don't want to join in for this one, next month's going to be a different game again. So you can always maybe see if you want to join in for that one.
Very good. And there will be links to everywhere you can find Scott on the description of today's episode. Also this week, if you head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimebroke, you can get the episode early. So some of you are already enjoying this before Monday's release. But as soon as I'm done editing it, I put it up on Patreon and then schedule it everywhere else. So you get it early if you go to patreon.com/thereasonsimebroke at any of the tiers. So thank you once again for joining us this week. I've been Daniel, joined by Scott, and Brokehead Core, all will be well. So Scott, aside from Cammy, because they've actually done Chun-Li as well, is there another Street Fighter character that you would want to see a swimsuit variant that you'd be like, all right, I got to buy that?
I mean, they've already done,
They've done your
the other
favorite?
character. I would. Yeah, they already did. They already did a jury.
Oh, I should have figured it was
Had money
Jury.
for it at the time. Yeah, jury's my favorite, but I didn't have anywhere near the money at the time. So unfortunately, I missed out on it.
Well, that probably won't be the last time they do it because Jury is a very popular character. On X, they were asking, like Matt Moylan was putting up the exclusive variants to the Street Fighter special. And someone in the comments was like, oh, typical like sexualization of these female characters. Like, why don't you do a male one? And he's like, we did do one year and sales tanked.
Yeah, I can believe that.
And he was just
Like-
talking about the covers. I know exactly what he's talking about. The interior still had all these other male and female characters, but the cover, I forgot who it was on the cover. And it's like, yeah, I can see people not order. Let's be real. Like, let's order to your fan base, like appeal to the people that are buying the books.
I mean, yeah, they know who to appeal to. Like normally, like so it's like, well, yeah, you appeal the horny dudes that are buying these covers. Like that's how you can sell all of these swim variants.
And I got to be honest, that would
Like-
include like Julian, because if you go through the book, even though the covers are mainly female characters, you go inside, you'll see Zangief, you'll see Ryu, like you'll get the male characters too.
Yeah.
They're in there.
I guess we need to see if there's a Zangief cover for Julian.
That'd be the only one that I'm like, maybe next time Matt's on, I'm like, look, I know sales tanked, but you got to give it
Yeah.
one more shot. I need you to do Zangief.
I need you, yeah, just do one print, like just for a friend.
One of one. Give me a price. We'll come up with it.
Like, yeah, or like whatever the lowest amount of print run you can do. Like, just do that.
500
Just send
copies.
a review copy. Like,
Send us all 500. That's fine. We'll find something to do with them. He'll
Julian
need
will
all of them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. He'll encrust all of them.
like he can use them as wallpaper and just and have them like hanging up on
Come all
like
over
a
his
whole little
walls.
shrine of Zangief.